Hello there. This one's here in the day that Reform are gonna basically bring an ICE style way of immigration. My suggestion is that you could really sort of use the Rwanda scheme again, and also use the last ferry, or 10:30 or 11:30 or whatever time it is, to Calais. 2,000 immigrants a day. Over 14 days, that would be 28,000 taken over. And all the backlog that are remaining over, you could say send them back. That would basically send all the immigration gangs basically into a frenzy, because if they're meant to be promising sort of like a second ride if you get basically returned, and plus all the new people that want the first like ride over in the dingies, well, they're going to cause a clash between those that want the second ride and the new ones, and then they'll run away because of the pressure, and just play them like that. And basically, because you're using your own scheduling as Britain, like to use it against this system, sort of scheduling to go to Calais, it would be within your own lawful right to use the ferries to do that, wouldn't it? Just a suggestion, because I can't see how these lot are going to do anything. I mean, they come up with ideas, but when all these sort of like politicians party come like Reform, the new saviour, really, they're just Scrappy Doo. Let me at them. Let me at them. Let me at them. Then when they come into power, they can't do anything because they're just Treasury's bitches under scrip, just like the Labour is right now and the Conservative. They're just third-tier controlled political prisoners. And until people realise and figure this out, you ain't going to get anywhere. But as a suggestion, you could actually just, not vote, and then these things can really start to happen. You see what I mean? But getting to about getting to about 28 million, so 1.2 million or 5 more million people, because they're not going to register. They're not going to accept the unregistered eligible voter of 8 million amongst themselves. That makes it 27 million of us amongst the 90 million of us who are registered that ain't voting, right? So we need 5 million more people that are registered amongst the 28 million that are voting between the 3-4 parties, right? To get to step one. Because all these other parties are giving you all these big false promises. They're Scrappy Doos. They're not going to do anything. Let me at them. Let me at them ain't going to do anything. Once they're in power, they're just going to become, controlled on script bitches. Right? They say all the big one, but when they're in the power, they can't do anything. Right? And until you haven't learned that, you haven't learned anything. Because, thank God, there's 27 million that actually has. That's why we're not voting. No, all we need is 5 more million people. Sort of to be in the captive audience under a captive political system of politicians now who are now political prisoners, and basically stop feeding into the game of the banking system's control, right? You've got to break basically the illusion of the system, and all you can do, right, is not vote. But on that immigration tip, if you just done that, you would lessen, the load of immigration and stop it, because once the word goes about that you can't get over Britain as a country being a release valve for all immigration, it's not going to happen anymore. You see what I mean? But it's getting to that point, Otherwise you're just going to continue basically down the same old road as them talking, we're going to do this, and they're not going to do anything, because is it in the Treasury's interest as the true deep state control rulers of this via UK's control to want to basically stop immigration? Because when they want to put their foot down, I'm sure they could, and it's only going to make a party at that time when basically they decide to put the foot down, make them look good at them being successful in something. But how many more general elections away is that, and what party via that is that going to go through? They're going to allow that too. That could be 2-3 more general elections for all you know. And by then you've got to watch out for 2029, that basically the next general election, because after it goes to Agenda 30, Agenda 50. And that's when they're going to really kick in all these 15-minute cities things that looks like it's on the horizon. If you're looking at Oxford right now and trying to control us and basically how far we can go, when they start to sector us all off, how many times we can go to certain places in our own areas before they start finding us to make more money, you see, because it's a reflection of them who are controlled as the middlemen bitches, as political prisoners, bringing that same imprisonment on us, basically in our own life, you see, and taking more of our freedoms away. But yeah, these are things to chew on about and and think about a bit more, and stop being so naive that politics and democracy is a good thing. You don't need democracy, you just need a free world voting system. Democracy should be held up to the light. It's really just deceitful communism, right? That's all it ever has been, It's all part of the Kali Yuga system of time. You've got to try and understand this, and get it through your head, right? That this isn't one but deceitful time of illusion in automation that you're born into, and you've got to basically grow away from it. 27 million of us, registered and unregistered, have come to some realisation of these things. That's why we're not voting, right? Yeah. Okay, and it needs 5 more million of you folk to do the same, that are voting. Because Gender 30 2050 is coming up, and it's going to get a little bit more tougher out here in the streets of living, right? Towns and villages, wherever you come from, right? Think about it. Have a nice day.